Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And I'm Chris.
And we're the Film Flamers.
Today we're bringing you our latest hot takes, and it's been a couple of months, so we've got a lot of stuff to share with you.
That's right. For those of you who don't know what our hot takes episode is, it's just Chris and I talking about the movies and TV shows or media in general that we've consumed, and, telling you our thoughts on it and whether you should watch it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last time we released a hot takes episode was in September.
That's right, yeah.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah, we've had some shows come out. We've had a lot of movies available to us. We've had some things we've hated and some things we've loved, and hopefully we'll be mostly sharing the things that we loved with you. And all of these are recommendations. We're not going to share anything with you that we wouldn't actually recommend for at least one watch.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that we are recording this podcast today on the day that it was announced that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States of America.
Yes.
So
it is the 7th of November, which feels like an eternity after actual election day.
For real.
And I feel like at least half the country, a little over half the country, has collectively exhaled. And parts of Europe. They were ringing their bells too.
All right, well, let's jump right into it then. Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I watched a film not knowing that Sean Connery was about to have his last breath. And that film is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I wanted to revisit it because it seemed a little bit horror adjacent upon memory of it, even though I knew it was kind of more action centered. And obviously, Alan Moore is a very famous author known for his graphic novels like Watchmen or V for Vendetta. Swamp Thing, Batman the Killing Joke, From Hell, and so I really wanted to revisit it because I'm a fan of his work, and I know the movie wasn't really something that people generally liked or even got attached to. Have you seen this, or have you?
I saw it when it was released. I can't even remember when that was. Maybe like 15 years ago or so, right? 20 years ago?
It was released in 2003.
Okay, 17 years ago. Yeah, I was not too far off. I watched it when it was first released because I was in college at the time, and I was a literature major, and it seemed like a movie that I should watch because everything was sort of based on literature and that. And I don't remember liking it very much.
No, I remember being like happy with it, okay with it. It also kind of signaled the end of Sean Connery's, active acting career. I think after that he might have made a few more minor appearances, maybe provided some voice for some like lesser known like animated films, but this was kind of his last foray, I think. And so it was fun to see him again. And it's kind of like Penny Dreadful before Penny Dreadful. It was had all those gothic characters in it. Invisible Man is in it, and of course Quartermain, who's kind of a Van Helsing-ish kind of character, and you've got Mina Harker, who's a vampire in the film, and Mr. Hyde.
Yep. Yeah, there's lots of horror adjacency in that movie.
And Captain Nemo, yeah. There's a huge amount, like especially with, Mina Harker. And then you've also got Dorian Gray, who is immortal. And you get to see a fight between a vampire and an immortal who can't really injure each other. And there's a lot of cool moments in the film. The design, just watching it at this point, like the design of the ship, especially Nemo's ship, and a lot of the other things in the film were really, really well done and intricate. And I still loved watching that, and seeing it now is just like it's all on the set, and it was really, really well done, intricate design work. And you don't see a lot of that still, really, but it was fun. I liked it. I rated it a 3-star. I would recommend people revisit it, just for some fairly mindless entertainment that's definitely horror adjacent.
Yeah, I need to revisit it because I honestly don't remember anything about it. Like when you talk about that fight scene, like I had completely forgotten about it, but it's starting to like form into my brain now. So it's there, but then maybe I'll like it a lot more on a second watch. I don't know, but there was just something about it at the time, and I was just like, meh. But
yeah, it hit harder for me this time. It was just, because I didn't have any expectations, and I don't think anyone should, but it's fun, and it's fun to see those characters on the screen at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, any sort of shared universe like that, I'm kind of nerdy enough to really enjoy that. But yeah, when Sean Connery died on that day, it struck me. I was like, God, I think Chris just watched one of his movies, and I had to go back and look at your letterbox to see what it was because I couldn't remember, and I was just like, oh yeah.
What is your favorite Sean Connery role?
Bond, I guess.
Yeah, that's an easy answer. If that was one of my dating questions where I ask you like color or Muppet, you would have failed.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Sean Connery. He's not my favorite Bond. I've never really been struck by him. I know that he was in Highlander, right? And
yeah, I liked him in Highlander, but he was only in the film for about 20 minutes or less, I think.
I just can't even think of a lot of Sean Connery movies that aren't James Bond movies, really, right?
My favorite where he's not just like this macho, Sean Connery-ish character is when he's in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as Indiana Jones's father, and he was delightful in that film.
Okay, so yeah, I changed my answer because I forgot that he was in that movie.
It was against type, and he was, despite the fact he was only 11 years older than Harrison Ford, he pulled it off, and he was absolutely wonderful in that film, and that'll be forever my favorite performance of his. Even better than Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Which was his first film.
Well, you hush now because it's on Disney Plus, so I mean, some people can go revisit that.
That's the first movie that scared the shit out of me as a kid, by the way.
Darby O'Gill and the Little Banshee. People. I haven't seen that movie since I was a very wee child. What a blast from the past. God. I don't know. Yeah, now I kind of want to watch Last Crusade. Oh, okay. That is the best Indiana Jones movie, by the way.
I believe so too.
Yeah, it just is. So I did a 31 and 31, but before I even started watching horror movies in October, I watched one at the end of September, like knowing full well that I was going to be watching a shit ton.
Yeah.
But I watched a movie called Spiral on Shudder. It's a Shudder original. And it's gay horror. So, I was really excited to watch this one. It stars Jeffrey Boyer Chapman, who I think is just one of the most attractive men, like, on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. And one of the writers is Colin Minihan, who wrote and directed What Keeps You Alive, which was one of my favorite movies from a couple years ago. And so I was ready to watch this. But I was pretty disappointed by the movie, really. It all sort of focuses around a same-sex couple who have a kid, and they move to this sort of like small town, and they start to get
But that's why you didn't like it.
What?
They have a kid?
She's like a teenager though, so I mean.
Okay.
But they're sort of like what is that? God, I can't think of the fucking word. I just said I was smarter because I wasn't smoking pot, and I can't think of this fucking word. What's it called when someone treats you differently because you're different?
Prejudice?
Yes, there. Thank you. Oh my God. Jesus. They start to experience some prejudice from their neighbors, and they one of the guys sort of like thinks that, there's like some sort of cult or something going on in the neighborhood, right? On paper, it seems like something that I would enjoy. I just didn't. I think I was expecting too much. I think my expectations were just way, way, way too high, and I felt let down. But it was worth it to look at Jeffrey Boyer Chapman for an hour and a half, so I gave it 3 stars.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I saw the trailer, and it did seem a little, I don't know, like the drama was kind of wrapped in there, a little subsumed a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I just
a lot of like Rear Window kind of things going on.
I didn't care for the ending. I didn't. It was sort of like making it seem like one of the guys was sort of going crazy, and and I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on why I didn't like it. But I mean, I know other people have seen it and loved it, but I just wasn't one of them. So.
Well, speaking of going crazy, I watched a film that I ended up recommending to you immediately, which was a film called Scare Me.
Yes, and I watched it fairly soon after you recommended it, I think.
Yes, and it stars Aya Cash, who was recently in Boys season 2, which I highly recommend. Everything I've seen her in is great. She was even in an episode of Will and Grace.
Really?
Which was, yeah, she played in the new series.
Oh.
She plays Karen's grown-up stepdaughter.
Oh, I bet that's good.
Yeah. So, so Scare Me is essentially about, kind of an author that goes into the woods into a cabin, to kind of try and find stories, try to think of stories to write in solitude. He runs across another author who's actually successful, and that's Aya Cash. And they end up having a huge storm, and the power goes out, and they end up kind of in the same cabin together, just talking. And then they make up stories to try and scare each other and, try and get ideas and things like that. And then there's like, a pizza guy that stops over. I forgot that actor's name, but he's from SNL.
Chris Redd.
Yeah. And he was great. It's just a really, really entertaining, interesting film, because they're telling all these stories, but they don't kind of go into anthology. And I think that would have been like, maybe with a higher budget, they would have been able to do that. But they really kind of utilize like sound design and the shadow play and things like that to tell you these stories, all like almost very, very stage play-ish. And so once you kind of get into it and you realize they're not going to really show you these stories, like you're either on board or you're not. And I was on board, and I really enjoyed the performances. I enjoyed the storytelling. I've enjoyed the ending, even though I have some issues with it. I felt like it might have fallen a little flat, but still, I really enjoyed the shit out of this movie. It's very unique, and it's definitely something I would recommend.
I completely agree with you. And I'm so glad that it was on my list to watch in October anyway. You just happened to catch it before me. And honestly, it could have been pushed by the wayside for something else, but since you so highly recommended it, I watched it like fairly quickly, which is out of character for me. It normally takes me years to watch movies that you recommend to me. So, but it was really, really fucking good. Like, I loved it. It has everything that I like in movies, right? Limited cast, small settings. I really enjoy like storytelling, and it was just filled with that. And it was really fucking hilarious. Right?
That's some good writing. Yeah.
Yeah. So director, writer, and star, Josh Rubin was good. I thought he was really good. Very funny. It was just a really enjoyable movie. It reminded me of why I like horror movies and why I like to be scared, right? Like, it's a really good sort of dissection and study of like tropes and things like that, and just the way that things like sound, and not necessarily like what you see, but it was just a fantastic movie. I had some problems with the ending, and that's sort of what affected my rating of the movie, but
you still rated it a 4.5.
Yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars.
Wow. So I gave it a 3.5, which is my very good rating. 4 is great. 5 is perfect. 4.5 is almost perfect, So for me, it was really good. So I gave it a 3.5, but for you, it's almost, if you were good by my understanding of ratings, for you, it's almost perfect. It would just need an adjustment to that ending.
Yeah, the ending is the only thing. I enjoyed myself so much watching this movie, and I laughed so hard that I thought this is just it's going to end up being my favorite horror movie of the year. I felt it like while I was watching it. And then the ending came around, and I was just like, oh, but I mean, that's not to say that it makes it a bad movie. I mean, it's so good. People need to go watch this.
Yeah.
And I mean, bad endings happen all the time, but everything that happened before that was just fucking gold, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I would watch this movie over and over again, probably.
It was good.
And I've given some 4.5s out this month, like I was passing out Halloween candy. You know what I mean? So I've seen some good things that are coming up in conversation. So
yeah.
But yeah, Scare Me was excellent.
For any of you that are well-versed in YouTube history, this is the same guy that's been kind of a mainstay back in the past on like College Humor. And he was the mother in Precious Plum, which is a little like maybe 10 episode mini episode series just making fun of, as a parody of who was that little girl or whatever?
Honey Boo Boo.
Yeah. So that whole thing. So, no, these are hilarious episodes. And he's in a fat suit, and he's playing the mom, with an even deeper voice. He's doing an even deeper voice for the mom.
I don't know. I thought he was like super cute in this movie too. Like, by the end of it, I was like, okay, I would totally sleep with him. You know what I mean? Because he's good looking and he makes me laugh. So yeah. I
was just glad to finally see him something a little bit more mainstream, because he's been in so many skits that I've seen over the years on YouTube and things like that. And he's always been a writer. So it was fun to see him in something. So I'm hoping that he has a future in horror.
I hope so. Comedy. too. Yeah. And I mean, I people, I've seen mixed reviews of this, like on social media. Like some people love it and some people don't. And that's fine. You know, it happens with a lot of movies. I happen to love it. So, but, speaking of recommendations, I want to talk about 2 movies real quick that you have told me that I should watch that have taken me either a year or longer to see. And I crossed them off during my 31 and 31. And one of those was We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Yay, Tilda.
Yes.
And she is a heavy fucking lifter in that movie.
She is the fucking movie. I mean, like, so I was already becoming a Tilda fan, but now I'm just on the fucking train. I'm on the fucking Snowpiercer train straight into Tilda Town, you know, like, she's so good in this movie. So good. And I mean, like, the movie itself is kind of weird. It's kind of off-putting in the way that it's filmed, right? And I think that's why a lot of people don't gravitate toward it. But
yeah,
her performance her performance is outstanding in this, though. Like, and I think I went in, I mean, I knew what it was about, but I sort of had this notion of that it was going to be something that it wasn't, right? I think I was expecting more of a straight formed thriller kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then it turned into this like art house movie, and I wasn't expecting that.
And all they'd have to do is re-edit it to be linear, because it's not a mystery or puzzle you have to put together. It's fairly straightforward of a story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It is.
And so it kind of pisses me off that they edited the way they did, because I feel like it would be a little bit more in pop culture and much more famous and probably gotten a lot more awards than it did. And it did receive some awards.
Well, she was nominated for a Golden Globe for this. So
yes,
yeah,
that I think if it had done a little less, you know, I don't know, snooty McSnooty pants, then it would have been. Because the performance is so good and the story is well done. Fuck,
yeah.
The guy that I think plays the Flash now in the DC universe was the kid, you know, in this, and he did a damn good job playing a psycho.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I keep waiting for, like, you know, the big moments to happen, right? And I'll try not to be so spoilery for a movie that came out like 5 years ago. So I mean, you're waiting for this big moment to happen, and even the way that it is shot and the way that he did it is sort of different, right? So I mean, it was a good movie. I really enjoyed Tilda in it.
Do we want to actually tell people what it's about?
Oh,
do we actually need to talk about Kevin?
Yeah. We need to talk about Kevin. So, okay, Tilda Swinton plays the mother of a kid who went and sort of, you know, killed a bunch of people at his high school. And the story is sort of told in flashbacks of how she met his father and they fell in love, to, you know, her having this baby and not really connecting with him as a mother, which is sad. And, like, she's growing up and it's an odd child, and she just never feels like compassion or love for him. And,
well, there's a reason for that, you know, and the kid is a sociopath, which is not really a real term, right? But it really means like a collection of things. It could mean narcissism with borderline personality disorder and antisocial disorder, right? So people that cannot connect with people and they only see people as things they can use and manipulate, right? And so this is one of those people that has unfortunately been born this way, or was, you know, I don't know what they're trying to say as far as my memory might be a little hazy on this versus like nature versus nurture, but it really seemed to me, my takeaway was that it was nature, right? That this kid was that way, especially as like a toddler, like you see.
And he clearly was born that way, right?
Yeah.
And but she, you know, still goes to visit him in jail, or, you know, and things like that. And she's having to readjust her life as, you know, being very publicly forced into mainstream, right? Because people know what her kid did, and she's still living in this town, and she has to deal with the parents of his victims and things like that. And I really wasn't expecting it to be so incredibly dramatic, and it was just so good. I gave it 4 stars. So I don't know what you would have rated it when you saw it.
I probably would have rated a 3.5 or a 4.
I mean, for her performance alone, I think is where that 4 comes from. You know, it's just like that. That's just it. You know, like she's just that good in it. But the other one I wanted to talk about real quick was Brightburn, because I know that you saw that. I think it came out last year, and it made your top 10 horror list last year, and I just still hadn't seen it, even though I owned the Blu-ray. So
Man, mothers are just having a hard time in these two movies.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that. But I really liked this too. And I was sort of expecting it to like it just because of the things that you've told me about it. And because I appreciate some gore. And this movie did not fucking disappoint on that end.
No, it doesn't.
So I was just like, yes, it was very, very good. I like that kid. Man, I would love,
it's like a prequel of The Boys or something.
I would love to see like more about that particular universe, right?
Sure.
And like I just want to see where the story goes a little bit. But yeah, it was a good movie. I had a lot of fun watching it. The kills were super good. And I'm always so impressed with Elizabeth Banks when I see her do things that are sort of outside a rom-com, right?
Yeah, I think she like produced this too, right?
Probably. She does a lot of producing, right? But I mean, like her in the Hunger Games and her in this, and when she does something that's not some like silly comedy or whatever, like I'm usually like super impressed with her, and I was in this too. And I thought it was a good movie, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah. I finally watched I, Tonya. Even though this is not a horror movie, I just wanted to say that I did watch I, Tonya. And I gave it a 4-star. And this, of course, is about the story of Tonya Harding and how she grew up and what she had to go through and everything kind of surrounding the whole Nancy Kerrigan and, the Olympics with that whole thing. And I definitely highly recommend it. The performances in it are just amazing. Allison Janney is a national treasure.
Yes.
And what more can I say? Watch the film. It's funny. It's dark. I love dark humor, and this is just full of it. And so, like I said, I give it a 4-star. I don't know what you rated it when you saw it, but I think you definitely recommended it to me.
Yeah, I think I probably gave it about 4 stars, maybe a little higher than that. I thought it was good. I laughed a lot. The thing I remember most about I, Tonya is, oh my God, you just said her name. Why am I blanking on it now?
Allison Janney?
Yeah. The thing I remember most about I, Tonya is Allison Janney, but I also remember like that particular Oscar year because like the Best Supporting Actress category was so good because Laurie Metcalf from Lady Bird was also fantastic, and I was just like, if either two of these women win, I'd be happy, And so when Allison Janney won, I was like, that's perfect, right?
Let's not forget about Margot Robbie as Tonya.
She was good. Talk about someone that I'm impressed with when I see them on film, right? Like she's a varied actress, and has played a lot of things now. And I think that, she's just someone that we really need to keep an eye on for years to come. She's just getting started. She's already gotten like 2 Oscar nominations, I mean, like, come on now.
And there's some real horror adjacency as far as like the real life horror with all the domestic violence going on and like the hitmen and everything else. But really it's all tongue in cheek a little bit, it's like dark humor, and the side interviews are happening, between things happening, and you get to see their actual thoughts on what they say about them after the fact, even though you're seeing it all kind of dramatized on screen. It's great. So it's definitely worth a watch.
Well, and I think it's good when you take sort of like a bad part of American history, right? Or at least American pop culture that we all remember, and sort of turn it into a comedy, right? It has to be a little dark, but it's a funny movie. I'm glad you watched it, actually. Within my 31 and 31, I was looking forward to watching Books of Blood on Hulu. This is something that we've talked about on Shooting the Flames. We covered the trailer. And I watched it and gave it 2 stars. And that's really all that I want to say about it.
Okay, so I have to amend my earlier statement to say that we are not recommending everything that we're listing here.
Sorry. I just like... it was like, I don't know.
The trailer looked so promising, though.
It did. The trailer looked scary, and I was ready for it. I don't think that I've read some Clive Barker. I haven't read any of the Books of Blood, so I wasn't really familiar with some of the stories. But as it turns out, the stories that were in this movie weren't even in the books. And so I'm like, okay, it was filmed like really, really bad TV series quality, right? And I don't know, it wasn't good. It wasn't compelling. And if you're having an anthology movie and the longest chunk of your movie is like the worst story, I'm like, okay, like it just wasn't good. And I love anthology films, and I don't know, I really hate to like shit all over movies, you know what I mean? I just don't really have anything good to say about this one, so I gave it 2 stars, but obviously, go and watch it for yourself and let me know what you thought about it, so some people seem to have liked it. It just wasn't for me.
Continuing my jaunt into non-horror, I saw a movie called Those People, and it's on Netflix, and I believe, pretty sure, and it's a gay movie, first off. So it's kind of like there's like a gay love triangle happening, but it's kind of in the upper echelon, tier of New York society, and so it kind of feels like a Great Gatsby or kind of Dickensian a little bit, and it is shot so beautifully. Everything just looks like an oil painting. Everything's kind of got a haze, and it's all kind of gold colors, in the almost kind of reminiscent of the palette of the film and the feeling of like Godfather in a way of how that looked. Just those like crushed blacks and everything, and so it's a really cool look of a film, and it was really, really well performed and done well. It's just I didn't really like the story and kind of how it was laid out, but I feel like you would rate it a hell of a lot higher than I did, and I rated it 3.5, mostly based on its technical and aesthetic achievements. But I would definitely check it out. It's it's not a bubblegum gay movie. It takes it very, very seriously, like it would a straight romance or something like that. So it does seem incidental, that they're incidentally gay, and that's something that I really love about it. But I would definitely check it out, at least for its aesthetic, and I think that you would probably dig the romance and story aspect of it more than I would. Things like Call Me by Your Name and things like that are a little bit more in your wheelhouse than mine. So I have a feeling that my 3.5 might translate to like a 4.5 or higher for you.
Oh yeah. Sometimes when movies are very heavily story based, right? And I tend to love that, right? I love anything that's character driven, and I do love gay romance. In fact, I hardly watch, quote unquote gay movies, right? Because they're usually so fucking silly. And, but if it's serious, then yeah, I'd probably love the shit out of it. Because I love Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, I mean, I really looked at the script too and stuff, but I was so annoyed with the characters that I just didn't buy into any of the relationships. But maybe I'm more judgy than you are. So
I'm real fucking judgy though. I'm just quietly judgy.
Okay.
So you say it's on Netflix, maybe?
Yeah,
you streamed it somewhere, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was. I believe it's on Netflix. Just let me fucking find out real quick. Those People. Correction. It is on Amazon. It's included with your Prime membership.
Amazon Prime. Okay. And you say it's an American movie, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Takes place in New York.
Not that makes a difference. I'd probably still watch it anyway. And, as we'll probably talk about later on, I'm trying to take a little bit of a break from horror movies. I say that, and then I have a night to myself, and it's the first thing I watch is a fucking horror movie, even though I said I'm not going to, but whatever. So there was a film festival recently called Fright Fest, where things like the New Orleans Horror Film Festival and Boston Underground Film Festival and things like that sort of all got together, pooled their movies and resources, and created this online fest. I watched a couple movies from it, so here's just the 3 out of the 5 that I would like to talk about. Okay. The first one is called Franken Zed, and this is a movie that we talked about on Shooting the Flames just a couple months ago. Yeah, the puppet movie that I was super excited to watch. And this is what really sold me on this festival, is that they were doing the world premiere of Franken Zed, and I was just like sold. Like, I have to watch this movie, and it was good. I expected to like it more than I did, because it was really silly, but that's fine because puppets are silly. But I mean, it was funny. It was touching in certain places. Essentially, it's about sort of like a Frankenstein monster and a zombie that live in this castle. They've been living together for just hundreds of thousands of years, maybe. And they sort of like take care of each other, and the townspeople revolt and go try to kill them, and they have to sort of survive that. Right. So it was a really good movie. My husband watched it with me and laughed a couple times. So, I mean, that means it must be some funny parts to it if he laughed out loud. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was great. Super worth it just to watch, for the puppets. Like, it's very talented. It must have taken a very long time to make this movie, right? So worth it just for that. I also watched a movie called Black Bear. And based on the trailer and synopsis, I was expecting something to be a little bit more horrific, but as it is, it's sort of like barely horror adjacent, but interesting. It has Aubrey Plaza, and whom I love, and Christopher Abbott, who I also like a lot. He was in Piercing and in Possessor, which has come out recently. And so I wanted to see it for them. It's got some good moments, but it's kind of a bizarre movie. I gave it 3.5 stars just because I was expecting something a little bit more hoary, but it's not.
Possessor?
No, Black Bear. Sorry, I haven't seen Possessor yet.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm sure when I see Possessor, I'll give it a much higher rating than that. But mostly, the movie that I watched out of this festival that I liked the most was called Leap of Faith, William Friedkin on The Exorcist.
Sweet.
And that is exactly what the movie is. It is William Friedkin sitting in a chair, looking at a camera, and talking about what it was like to make The Exorcist. And like where he drew his inspiration and things like that. And like sort of the history around it. It's really just him narrating everything with some like stills, cut in. But it was the most fascinating movie. And I could sit there literally and listen to William Friedkin just talk. And he talks about that. He talks about cruising a little bit in the movie. And like, it was just so good. It's from the director, I can't remember his name. It's like Alexander Philippe or something like that. And he also made the documentary about the shower scene from Psycho, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, he just makes a good documentary. And I loved the shit out of this. I gave this 4.5 stars. Like, this is something that I would watch a lot. And it's coming on Shudder. So by the time that this episode is released in November, it should already be on Shudder. So like, really go do yourself a favor and watch this, especially if you like The Exorcist. It's completely worth it.
I'm really looking forward to that.
You will like it. I know that you will. Like, it's just, especially from somebody who, was in film school and understand what it is to make a movie on a technical level. Like, you will appreciate the fuck out of this movie just so much. I know you will. So as soon as it's released on Shudder, you've got to go watch it.
I definitely will.
Good.
So, extending my journey into horror adjacency even more. I'm a bad horror podcast co-host.
Sometimes you just need a break. It's okay.
Yeah, and so I watched Jackie. Starring Natalie Portman as Jackie O, right? Jackie Kennedy.
Yep.
And it's kind of the story of what happened right before, during, and really after the assassination of Kennedy. And you were right there in the car with her. And it shows you everything. And it's almost like too much. It feels almost like too much. Like, I'm a little more reverent towards these sort of things. And I don't know. I feel like it might have gone a little too far there. I don't know. But it's also kind of dark and kind of nihilistic in a way. And I don't know how much I feel about, how I'm looking at the situation now a little bit more pragmatically than I did before. And what she chose to do in the aftermath to really tell the story and leave a legacy of Kennedy, based on, everything that happened. And so the political realities of the time, with LBJ kind of taking over and everything, the expected move out of the White House and having to do these interviews and, how she had to talk to the children, after the assassination and everything that happened during and after. And most of this is happening kind of in an interview. So it's like she's telling the story and then kind of saying what he can and can't actually write down. And she's kind of hardcore compared to the public image, right? And so it's kind of interesting to see if that would be or could be true about Jackie Kennedy. And I was going to rate it a 3-star because it's so maudlin. It's so dark and just gray. It's just like a dreary fall day, the whole fucking movie. And given the subject matter, fine, but at the same time, it's really just about death and tragedy and trying in politics and trying to spin the story to make their relationship seem like something it really wasn't or spin it into something else, and how she really tried to kind of tell the story of Camelot, right? And how the whole Kennedy legacy was, for one brief shining moment, this was Camelot, right? And so trying to say that it's a tragedy for the American people as well, as far as like the political legacy and what it could have been. And I jumped it up 0.5 because they literally started playing the soundtrack of Camelot, which is one of my favorite musicals at the end. So, well, yeah, so it's worth a shot. It's worth a watch, especially for the performance by Natalie Portman. Although I thought she was good, but I don't know that it's like, awards quality. She did the job, and I don't know, like, I'm on the fence. So if you're really interested to see kind of a behind the scenes take on what might have happened with, the assassination and Jackie and the planning of the funeral and why it was done in a certain way and things like that, it's kind of fascinating in that regard. So if you're interested at all in that sort of story, then go back and check that out.
I thought it was a good movie. I mean, I like Natalie Portman. And I watched it because she was nominated for the Oscar that year, I think. And, yeah, I remember it being very depressing. Like, it seemed like the big chunk of the movie was like planning a funeral. And I'm like, yeah, I have a friend who is super interested in anything that has to do with JFK and, his life and everything about it.
It was so impartial. Like, it's not trying to manipulate the audience emotionally almost at all, kind of in any kind of entertainment kind of way, which is good, I guess, when I say that out loud. But you don't really feel that tragedy. You feel it a little bit more abstractly, I guess. It's hard to explain, because it's almost like the filmmakers didn't really care for John Kennedy, So I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember too much about the movie. I remember her performance being very good. And I remember thinking, when this movie's over, I want to go back and watch The House of Yes. Like, it reminded me of like that character dressing up like Jackie O. So, I mean, but yeah, it was a good movie. It just seems like it's one of those things that I probably wouldn't watch again.
It's also kind of weird because it's like, she's going to die before her time. Her child is going to die in like a plane crash. Yeah. And, the uncle or, Bobby Kennedy or whatever Robert Kennedy is going to get assassinated, and JFK was assassinated. And, it's just like you see all these people and it's just like a whole bunch of tragedy. It's just really down, it's
in one family, know, I mean, so yeah, it's a lot. It's a downer for sure.
And then you could go off on another track, and watch all those documentaries about it, or watch the other movies about it, or you take a little step to the to the bizarre and watch Grey Gardens, who are like the cousins of Jackie Kennedy, so
which is amazing. Like, I mean, everyone needs to watch that fucking movie. Oh Lord. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I remember it being good. So yeah, everyone should watch that at least for that piece of American history that it portrays. So I think it's worth it. Well, I watched a movie during my 31 and 31 that I saw people giving some pretty high praise to on social media, and it's another anthology movie. So I was like, okay, sign me up. I'm on board. And it was called The Mortuary Collection. It's streaming on Shudder. And I loved it so much that I recommended it to you, right? So
yes, you did. And I watched it as well.
And this movie is so fun. Like, it really is just like a super fun movie.
Yeah.
I think when I was talking to you about it, I sort of described it as if they were going to make a modern day series of Tales from the Crypt, like the old HBO show, like this is how I would see it. Like, some of the stories that they made were just like so tongue in cheek and just fun and funny that I was like, this is exactly what I think that show would be like.
Yeah, and it's an anthology, and it's surrounded by this kind of bookend story with Clancy Brown, who I always love seeing. I loved him ever since I saw him in Highlander as the main kind of very horror slashery bad guy, and he's been in some things since then, like, you know, Lost and Starship Troopers and a lot of other things. SpongeBob, we've discussed him before. And no, he was really, really good in this, and I really enjoyed him and seeing him, and I enjoyed these stories. They kind of start off a little tongue-in-cheek, and they get kind of better and better as they go along. They drop the ball in a few places as far as, I don't know, like budget or something. Like, there's that one elevator story where the wife, you know, kind of gets up and she looks kind of demonic, but it just, to me, it looked like this, you know, dime store plastic mask that you could get at a Halloween store or something.
Well, and that's why I say it sort of reminds me of Tales from the Crypt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like they were purposefully trying to make something that was sort of reminiscent of that. And Clancy Brown looked like he was just having a fucking ball, like, in that character, right? But like any anthology, like, some of the stories are better than others.
Yeah, but
right?
none of them were bad. And that's something that's really good, because it was like, okay, I see what they're doing. You know, it's fun. And then it gets better and scarier as they go on, or more disturbing. And there may or may not be an exploding penis.
I was going to say, I was like, there is an exploding penis in this movie. So, I mean,
yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty good. So I gave it a 3.5, you know. I enjoyed it. I thought the last one was kind of the best story, but also kind of out of order again. And I'm just starting to get pissed off by that. Yeah. You know, and so it's a little confusing, but then finally I figured it out, and you know, it's definitely worth a watch, especially if you like anthologies.
I gave it 4.5 stars. I liked it so much. Again, this is something that I would be watching more than one time, right? Because I had such a good time with it. And the second story was my favorite, the one with the frat boy. So, I mean, I thought it was clever. I thought most of the stories were funny, like I said. I mean, it's just a really good time. So if you have Shudder, go watch it for sure. Horror fans will like this movie. I mean, I think. So I have one more movie that I watched that sort of snuck up on me during my 31 and 31. And it's another movie that we covered on Shooting the Flames. I guess I'm really like putting, you know, my money where our mouths are with the shit that we're talking about on these trailers, because I've watched a couple of them now.
Yeah, I'm glad one of us is.
That's okay. You tend to watch more horror movies outside of October.
I find the trailers, you watch the movies. That's the deal.
It's okay. I'm good with that. So we talked about the trailer for the movie Love and Monsters on a Shooting the Flames, and it just looked good and cute. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and rent. Actually, I purchased this movie because it was one of these like $20, $24 VOD things that they're doing now, right? Mm-hmm. And the trailer looked interesting enough that I wanted to watch it. And I started watching it, and I was about 15 minutes in, and I had to restart it because it seemed like something my husband would like. And he did. I went and got him. We watched the movie together, and it is so fucking good. Like, Love and Monsters is a fantastic movie. It's very, very horror adjacent-y. Like it's barely.
It's got monsters.
It's got monsters in it, and that's what makes it horror adjacent. And the monsters are really fucking cool. Like, the monster effects in this are great. The CGI work is incredible. And it's just a good story. It's got Dylan O'Brien. It's funny. It's romantic. It's adventurous. It's good for kids. Like, it's a good family movie. And I just loved the shit out of it. And I think that everyone needs to go watch it. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to pay $25 to go rent this movie, but if they drop the price,
Yeah. The trailer kind of reminded me of like a more horror adjacent Jumanji.
It's kind of like that. So like essentially, I'm trying to even remember now. We were having, there's a meteor that's coming toward Earth. And so all the countries of the world sort of send up all their nuclear weapons to destroy it. And all that nuclear waste and stuff is coming back down to Earth. And so it made cold-blooded creatures sort of like transform into these giant, hideous monsters. So we have like giant frogs or millipedes or snails, right? That are taking over the Earth, and people are living in these bunkers. And this guy, he's like lost his girlfriend like on the day that a giant monster attacked like San Jose or something. And he decides that he's going to walk the 84 miles to get to her bunker. And he has to like, you know, go through all this terrain and monsters and things like that. And it's just like a really fun, cute, romantic comedy, horror adjacent thing that I will probably watch until the day that I die. Like I just really, really liked it a lot. So I gave it 4.5 stars. It's totally worth the money, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to check it out. The trailer looked fun.
It's a fun movie. Yeah, okay. I think you would like it.
So before we go into our mutual last pick that are both our highest ratings, do you want to talk about some things we watched on TV?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. So we both watched Ratched.
Yes, another recommendation from you. I think it was something that was on both of our lists to watch anyway, but
yeah.
You were sort of like gushing about it when you first started it, and I was like, okay, sign me up. Right?
Yeah, it just seemed like such, you know, a love letter to, you know, those 60s thrillers, right? It was just such a love letter to me for Hitchcock, and you noticed a couple other homages, you know, and the color palette is just so like Technicolor 60s. The music is straight out of like, you know, Hitchcock and some other films of that era, and I just absolutely loved the aesthetic of it. I expected the story to be a little bit more, close to like, you know, The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where Nurse Ratched comes from as a character, right? But this is not that at all. It went so far out of those expectations and into this realm of like Hitchcock that I was just like, okay, you know, and I didn't realize Sharon Stone was in it, and she plays, you know, like a Sunset Boulevard kind of character, which was really fun to see. Like any Ryan Murphy show, it falls on its ass at the end, but you know what? We forgive it again and again and again. So I still have to recommend this show.
I really, really liked it. And I think for once, like I didn't hate the ending. So as far as I'm concerned, like bravo, Ryan Murphy, like for once I'm happy with like the complete entirety of your show this season. I thought it was good. Yeah, I was noticing a lot of Brian De Palma in this. Like to me, it was sort of like Ryan Murphy's love letter to Brian De Palma's love letter to Hitchcock, you know? And so like, it just every time I turned around, it was so De Palma, right down to like the split screen, you know, in certain scenes. And I was just like, it was amazing. I really enjoyed like the costume design, like you said, the set design. Like I thought that its tone and just everything about it was so on point. Mm-hmm. And Sarah Paulson is good. She's good.
Always. She's always. Yeah. We don't even need to say that. Yeah.
I know. I mean, it just goes without saying. But that whole scene where she's talking about her fucking peach, you know, I just like fucking lost it. I was like, so good. Mm-hmm. Just amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I would suggest that people go and watch it. But like you, I was really hoping to get a little bit more into the character that we know of as Nurse Ratched. And hopefully future seasons, and there is going to be another season, maybe they'll start to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, this is definitely different for Ryan Murphy's normal fare, at least lately, and that it will have multiple seasons. It's not a one shot.
Mm-hmm. I will say that, you know, while I didn't hate the ending, I really don't want them to continue that story very long. I think it needs to wrap it up.
That's what I'm saying. They ended it really well, and then they just kept going with it, and it's just dead to me, and I don't understand. We need to move on with the character of Ratched. We don't need to continue on with some of these side characters that, you know, whose plot threads have ended, you know, and was hard fought to have ended. And so the fact that it was just like really lame and kind of bullshit writing to me, just to you know, kind of justify a season 2 when they didn't have to do it that way. So I don't know. I'm hoping a season 2 will kind of lift it back up to where the first, you know, 6 or 7 episodes were.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, maybe he can just make a shorter season. Like, if you're going to have a story to tell it quickly. Because, I mean, I was expecting the entire season to be wrapped up in a normal Murphy fashion, where he, like, finishes the story, and the last episode is always, like, this weird overarching after the story should have ended already. Like, here's what's happening now. And I don't know. I thought it ended well. Exploring, you know, relationships and things like that. And plus you get to see more of Judy Davis, and I thought she was great in that movie.
Oh, man, I always loved Judy Davis.
She was just so good as that, like, main foil to Nurse Ratched, right? So, I mean...
You need to go back and watch her biopic on Judy Garland.
Yeah, I probably do, because I didn't care for the one with Renee Zellweger. I thought it was just okay. I probably would have liked it.
And I still haven't seen that, but the one... She played an excellent older Judy Garland, and this was back in the late 90s or early thousands or something. Mm-hmm. And the young actress did an amazing job too. But it was a great miniseries, and so I highly recommend it. I think she won the award, or was at least nominated for, you know, Golden Globe or Emmy or something.
Yeah, I think Judy Davis actually won all the awards that year. Anything she was nominated for, I think she won it. So you know this already. And I mean, some of our listeners, at least if you follow us on social media, know this, that I finally sat down and have completed the first season of The Boys.
Yay!
Yay! It only took me over a year.
And did you love it?
I did. I really fucking loved it. And I have to apologize. You know, it's not that... So, I mean, I put it off because I don't want to see any more superheroes, you know? And I was just like, I know it's supposed to be a little different or whatever, but I loved it. This show is perfect for anybody who's suffering from superhero fatigue. Like, it's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was good. It was clever. I liked the heroes themselves. I really liked the moral ambiguity going on in this show. Yep. And the characters are just great. They just really are. And Elizabeth Shue, forever. I mean, R.I.P.
Yes. Well, don't spoil it.
Well, she's not dead in real life now?
No.
My mistake. So, my God, it was really, really, really good. And we haven't started the second season yet because my husband and I watched it together. And we're going to be starting it soon, though, because we both enjoyed it a lot.
I think the fan base is fairly split, you know, on season 2, but I'm in the camp that it was even better than season 1 because it continues that, you know, nihilistic, dark kind of stuff. And it really gets like really close to it really gets close to what's happening or what has been happening, especially over the last couple of years in America, you know, with, you know, fucking neo-Nazis and everything else on the streets and everything else. And it gets really, really like on the nose with a lot of that stuff. And that's probably why some people didn't like it, because probably some of those people are Trump supporters. So if you are not a Trump supporter and you liked The Boys season 1, you will definitely enjoy Boys season 2, probably even better.
So what I want the most in season 2 is to see more superheroes, right? Because apparently there's superheroes all over the world, right? Or at least all over America. And I want to see some of these people who are not in the 7, right? I want some other people. So
there's a new character that it gets a little bit more political. It's essentially AOC, you know, and you'll see what happens with her character, but it's gold. So, you know, there's even more, definitely. And there may be a superhero that has penis powers, and you'll see what I mean by that too.
Well, that is enough to like get me on board for sure. If it wasn't already,
see a giant penis strangle someone.
Wow. Okay, so exploding penises in Mortuary Collection and strangling penises in The Boys season 2. Okay, I'm totally good with that. Actually,
yeah. It's not a spoiler because I haven't told you whether it's cut or not.
I really enjoyed the amounts of male nudity in this show, right? So like within the first episode or 2, there's like some full on male frontal nudity, and that camera does not cut away. It just like sits there and he walks like directly toward the camera. And I was just like, wow, you know, I really appreciate shows or movies that, you know, objectify men. I think it's okay. So,
and later that character gets a plastic explosive enema. So
Yeah, it was kind of nasty. And gore. I mean, like, this is a really gory show, too. And I appreciate the
first
fuck out of
5 minutes,
that.
really.
Yes. And so I was just like, it was good. So I apologize for taking so long. I should never doubt. And maybe on the next Hot Takes episode, I will have finished season 2 by then.
Perfect.
So. But you watched all of season 2 so far, right?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And I might want to watch it again all the way through because it was just that good to me.
Wow. Okay.
So, should we talk about our favorite film for this Hot Takes?
Yes, I think it's time. We have saved the best for last. And this is something that we both watched recently. So last night, as of this recording, because it was very recently put onto Netflix. And it's a movie called His House.
Yes, and that is a film about essentially refugees from, I believe, South Sudan who have, requested asylum in England, right? And so they are accepted, and they're living in a house that is in the outskirts of London, which they find out they are not alone in by some sort of supernatural force. And so it's a film that's kind of in the same vein as like Hereditary and Babadook and Relic recently. And I think we had a conversation maybe in the last Hot Takes or somewhere where we discussed that this is kind of a trend in horror, that we're going to be able to kind of look back on years from now and say, here's a string of films that we're talking about complex emotions through horror, through the lens of horror, and doing it really, really successfully and well, right? And this is one of those, like Relic was about, dementia and losing yourself in late in life, and Babadook was about loss, and Hereditary was about, Hereditary. And, this is kind of about survivor's guilt and, PTSD a little bit. And so this is kind of, its take on that kind of complex emotion. And it's done so well, aesthetically, technically, musically. The performances are just, chef's kiss, and I can't really speak enough about this. And it really affected both of us kind of profoundly, especially by the end.
Yeah, I mean, it really did. I had seen a couple people say some things on social media about how it was good. And I was just like, okay, so if I'm going to watch something randomly, I picked it. Cause I mean, if enough people say it's good, it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. So, I mean, obviously I trust that site. And, by the time I was about halfway through it, I was just like, good googly moogly. Like, this movie is so well made and just, it's just so good. And I really enjoy horror that has some sort of message behind it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like, good trashy fun horror too, obviously. But I mean, a movie like this is super, affecting. And I just thought it was great. The performance of Wemi Musaka, who plays the woman in the relationship, right? This guy's wife. I thought she was just so good in this movie. Like, this is why awards are given out, frankly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking that this has got to win some awards, and it does. It strikes a balance with its storytelling that, like I was talking about Jackie earlier, right? Like it's a movie that's more important than it is good, right? And we see a lot of those, but this is a movie that's as important as it is good, and I really, really appreciate it when that is something that's achieved.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, it's talking about survivor's guilt and PTSD. It's also talking about what it feels like to have to like leave your home and start afresh and carry that kind of baggage that goes along with that, and being looked at as outsiders or different or other than the people who are around you, even the people of the same skin color. Right, treat them differently, and it's just like it's so heartbreaking to watch, and I got terrified. There are some moments in this movie that literally scared the shit out of me. I took a break and had to go outside and smoke a cigarette because I was frightened. And I mean, if a movie can frighten me like that and, move me to tears by the end of it, and I was having a full-on Claire Danes ugly cry by the end of this movie, I think it's just something special. If you can do all those things in one, I mean, it's a special, special movie.
Yeah, I didn't Claire Danes ugly cry, but I did have the single tear. Especially, I had to sit there and kind of listen to the music during the credits and just kind of think about the movie. And I will continue to think about it, we talked about it kind of at length over text right after we'd both seen it. And I was thinking about it for hours afterwards, and I couldn't watch anything else afterwards. I had to go to kind of, think about it and go to bed. I was planning on watching something else, but I'm just glad that I ended up watching the Mortuary Collection beforehand, instead of like after, because I would just been like, this is a pile of crap after this movie, So it's just like, definitely like take some time to watch this film. We definitely highly recommend it. It is the standout recommendation of this Hot Takes, and that is the film His House.
Yep. I gave it 5 stars. So a perfect rating from me.
Yep. I gave it a 4.5, which is very rare for me.
Yep. So yeah, it's great. It's on Netflix. Everybody has Netflix. Like, do yourself a favor, go watch it. It's seriously one of the best horror movies this year, or of many years.
And as usual, all of the links to watch these films and the list of these films is in our show notes. So check those out.
That's right. If you had a hard time keeping up, or, you forgot to jot something down, it's okay. Chris so very kindly puts them in the show notes for you. Go visit them. But I think that just about wraps up our conversations on all of our hot takes and things that we watched. And we will start watching things for the next episode of Hot Takes. So
likely not until next year.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have one for quite some time. And in fact, this will be our last episode in November. So we have a week off at the end of this month. There's 5 weeks in November. So we'll be back in December with Shooting the Flames and to talk about a Christmas horror movie that I like very much, Night of the Comet.
Mm-hmm. And check us out over on Patreon, because we are going to be talking about our werewolf movie that you guys have voted for. And unfortunately, we kind of did a snafu where we couldn't watch the movie that was voted for the most because it's not streaming and I don't have enough time to buy the movie before I move. So we're going to have to go to the next one, which was
The Company of Wolves.
That's right. So we'll be watching that one. And that's by the same director that did Interview with the Vampire, so we're looking forward to it.
And don't fret, we will come back and do a Patreon episode of Brotherhood of the Wolf. So if that piques your interest, go over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers to find all of our bonus content and vote in some polls that, may be coming up. Also, you can find us on social media. If you have seen any of the movies that we have talked about on this Hot Takes episode, we want to know what you think about them. Find us at The Film Flamers on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
You can email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com or call us on our hotline at 972-666-7733. We've gotten a couple of voicemails recently. We want even more.
That's right.
So please let us know, especially if you've seen some of these, and especially if you've seen His House, because we really want to know what you think.
That is correct. Nikki has already commented on our post about watching it last night, so I know that people are already seeing this movie, and we're very interested to know what you think about it. And I think that just about wraps up the show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we need a review. We didn't get one last month, so go ahead and leave that 5-star review, and we'll read that on Shooting the Flames.
Please do. It helps us out a lot.
All right, well, until December, when we start the spooky holiday season. Sweet dreams.
His house in the middle of our street. His house.